breaking news. We've got ETFs launching today. We've got Solana ETF, Litecoin ETF, HBAR ETF, but no XRP ETF. They weren't even supposed to launch these ETFs, but they found a sneaky way of launching and they utilized it. So let me go to today's issue of the newsletter. Every single day you get this newsletter, first link in the description. And let me explain to you how these ETFs are going live during a shutdown, because we weren't expecting any movement on ETFs during a government shutdown. But we've got 3 ETFs launching today on the 28th of October, and XRP is not one of them. So let's go through the newsletter. So as of today, US investors can gain direct regulated exposure to Solana, Litecoin, and HBAR via new spot ETFs. The launch includes Bitwise's Solana ETF, ticker symbol BSOL, Canary Litecoin ETF, ticker symbol LTC, Canary Hedera ETF, ticker symbol HBR, and Grayscale Solana Trust, ticker GSOL, converting to an ETF on October the 29th. This development represents the first set of US-listed ETFs offering physical spot exposure to these altcoins without a formal approval announcement from the SEC. The mechanism that enabled this quiet approval is a technical rule under the Securities Act of 1933, which while widely overlooked, it allowed issuers to file amended registration statements that became effective by default 20 days after submission, even during a government shutdown. So let me explain that rule a bit further, but basically, if they filed under that rule, and there was no basic objection in that 20 days, they will list automatically. And that's the rule that they utilized. And that's why we're getting a Solana, Litecoin, HBAR ETF. I'm not concerned we don't have an XRP ETF right now. I'll tell you when I think that'll happen. I'll tell you if any XRP ETFs have been filed with the same rule in a second. But we have to take a moment to appreciate that there is a Solana ETF coming out today. That's an altcoin ETF. So there's only ever been a Bitcoin and an Ethereum. This is a spot ETF. So this is altcoins now being on the stock market, now being able to be put in tax efficient accounts. That's Solana, Litecoin, and even my favorite probably out of the bunch is HBAR that has launched today. And will be live in a few hours. If you're watching this as a video, it's probably already live as we speak. We're recording this in our morning forecast show live every single morning. If you haven't hit the like button, please do. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe as well. So, it's a historic day. This video will go down in history. It's the first time we've got altcoin ETFs on the stock market. So very, very, very exciting. Let's take a look at the boring part, which is how they managed to do this. So the legal mechanism, the rules 473B and section 8A. Under standard ETF registration procedures, issuers include a delaying amendment in their Form S1 filing. This clause explicitly prevents the registration statement from going effective until the SEC declares it so. This is normal route used for most IPOs and ETF launches, ensuring the SEC staff have time to conduct a full review and issue comments or approval. So normally there is this clause that is in the documentation that says you can't go live without the SEC's go-ahead. But Rule 473B under the Securities Act provides an alternative. If an issuer removes the delaying amendment and replaces it with specific language invoking Section 8A, the S1 registration statement becomes effective automatically 20 days after filing, unless the SEC takes action to stop it. So essentially, the SEC has taken a break. Well, no, they're not taking a break. Well, the government shut down. They're not in the offices. They're on a very, very reduced working power at the moment. So essentially, the SEC is not there. These issuers have changed the wording and said, okay, let's see if the SEC will stop us. But there's no one in the SEC to stop them. So basically, they've got automatically approved because no one said anything in 20 days. The SEC at this point probably wouldn't have said anything anyway. They've made it clear that they are pro-crypto SEC. But Essentially, there was no one there to stop it. So this is what they changed. They changed the wording, and we've got an example here. So the registration statement shall hereafter become effective in accordance with the provisions of Section 8A of the Securities Act 1993. So if you look at this first filing here, someone asked, so they can revert the ETF once the government shutdown stops? No, they won't be able to. Technically speaking, yes, they can file criminal proceedings, but there's there's no reason for them to go ahead and go after them and unlist it. That's not going to happen. That was a question from our live chat saying, can they revert the ETF once the shutdown stops? Can they? Maybe, but will they? No, definitely not. So here is the statement highlighted up here. You can see that this was the initial way. This was dated September 26th. It was the registrant hereby amends this registration on such date. And then on October the 9th, they changed their wordings. They said this registration shall hereafter become effective in accordance with Section A of the Securities Act 1933. So you can see they took away that clause of the delaying amendment from their S1 filings. That's the delaying amendment that you normally put in, so the SEC takes time. They removed that. They filed again on the October the 9th. 20 days later, here we are, October the 28th. What's going to happen? On the 29th, so I think Grayscale is going live tomorrow. What's going to happen 20 days later is an ETF, and it's done. So this clause has always existed, but it was rarely used in ETF contexts. In this case, it became the workaround for launching these spot crypto ETFs amidst a federal shutdown when SEC staff are not actively reviewing or declaring filings effective. Very, very interesting stuff. So the timeline of the filings and effectiveness. The first movers was Canary Funds, which filed their amended S1s on October the 7th. So basically, they just filed again with an amended wording. So that the first one's still at Canary Funds for Litecoin and its HBAR ETFs. That's why we've got them going live today. The firm removed the delaying language, so you can see this language over here is what they normally use. That's the delaying language. They removed that part and they inserted the new language, which is the 473B clause. Based on the 20-day countdown, those ETFs became legally effective on October the 27th, with trading beginning today, October the 28th. Next was Bitwise, who submitted their amended S1 for Solana ETF on October the 8th. Grayscale filed its updated statement for the GSOL conversion on October the 9th. These dates align with effectiveness on October 28th and 29th, respectively. The timeline also confirms that the 20-day clock was properly observed and no further amendments were filed, which would reset the countdown under Rule 473A. So if they were going to amend anything, then the countdown starts again, but they didn't from that date that they did the main amendment to remove that wording, and they made no amendments, so they're going live today. So final regulatory steps, 8A filing and exchange listings. In addition to the S1 registration, ETFs must file Form 8A under the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. The document, this document registers the actual shares for trading on national exchanges such as New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. According to official records and reporting, NASDAQ posted final listing circulars from Canary's LTC and HBAR's ETFs on October the 27th. The New York Stock Exchange certified the Form 8A filings for Bitwise's BSOL and Grayscale GSOL products, signaling the readiness to trade. So everything's in place. We're going to get them going live today. There's going to be another Solana one going live tomorrow. So this is a repost from Eric. We know Eric because he's the one from Bloomberg who's an ETF expert. That's his whole job, to look at ETFs. He's reposted this, and you can see this is what James said. Yes, we expect a Solana, Litecoin, and HBAR to get their first pure spot ETFs here in the US this week, as has been reported. But how did this happen? Almost certainly due to the language in guidance letters from the SEC Division of Corporate Finance, which became in the form of Q&A. The question number 11 out of 12 looked to be the critical detail. Though honestly, it's not completely clear that this was meant for ETFs to my non-lawyer brain or eyes. Specifically talks about IPOs and securities, but ETFs are securities. Either way, the lawyers associated with Canary Funds, Bitwise, Grayscale, NASDAQ, and New York Stock Exchange obviously felt it was strong enough for them. So there was basic wording from the SEC that said that from a Q&A part that the question was, now that the shutdown is effective, can I file an amendment to current registration statement to remove delaying amendments so my registration statement will be effective in 20 days? So this was from the Q&A, and then the answer was simply omitting the delaying amendment from amendment will not begin the 20-day period. A company that intends to remove the delaying amendment must amend its registration statement to include the following language provided in Rule 473B. This registration shall hereafter become effective in accordance with provisions of S from Section 8A of the Securities Act. So from one little Q&A, this was something provided by the SEC. It was, if I want to get it, if I want to file something, can I just remove the wording and it could be effective in 20 days? The SEC said, no, you have to actually include new wording. And yes, it will be approved. So there you go. They utilized that, and the SEC can't really go back on what they said, can they? So the combination of an effective S1 and certified 8A fulfills the core legal requirements for a product to launch and trade on public markets. We'll come on to XRP in a second. So custody and pricing structure. Custody for the underlying digital assets is handled by BitGo and Coinbase Custody, both of which are qualified custodians. Pricing will be sourced via CoinDesk indices, which are commonly used for daily net asset value calculations in digital asset products. This infrastructure mirrors the price spot crypto products such as the spot Bitcoin ETFs, ensuring operational continuity and regulatory defensibility, very much following spot price. And it's a spot ETF. So industry confirmation and public announcements. Here is what Eleanor Terrick said. This is sort of how the news broke. We all know who Eleanor Terrick was. She's was a reporter for Fox, and now she reports on crypto. So Canary Funds, Spot HBAR, and Litecoin ETFs are now effective and will start trading on NASDAQ tomorrow, in accordance to CEO Stephen McClurg. This is a tweet on X post from yesterday. This is the CEO saying Litecoin and Hedera are the next new token ETFs that go effective after Ethereum. McClurg told me in a statement, we look forward to launching tomorrow. Then, as confirmed by Eric and the New York Stock Exchange, has also certified 8A filings and posted listing notices for Bitwise Invest Spot Solana ETF to launch tomorrow, and Grayscale's GSOL to convert on Wednesday. So we've got another Grayscale. Remember, Grayscale has these massive funds, but they were never ETFs. They've always wanted to convert them into ETFs. Well, their Solana one's going to be converted tomorrow. So the question was always asked, how is this possible during government shutdown? Well, the operation of law does not actually require an open government. It's my understanding that the 8A filings were just as important as the S1 filings, getting these ETFs ready to launch. Essentially, a quick catch-up on terminology. The AA formally registers ETF shares under the 1934 Act for trading on an exchange, while the S1 registers them for Securities Act of 1933. This morning, New York Stock Exchange confirmed that 8A filings for the ETFs above, aka the final steps before shares can start trading. But what about SEC staff needing the green light for the S1 registration statements? Well, here's the key. The issuers included language in their amended S1s that let them automatically go effective 20 days after filing. Typically, issuers delay the S1s until the SEC takes them effective, but the legal default is that the S1s goes automatically effective without SEC intervention. That means that the agency does not need to approve them manually, and the filings can go live on their own, even during a shutdown. So the long story short, all legal boxes are checked and all these ETFs are on track for launch. So yeah, the main reason was, which didn't explain there, is this Q&A from the SEC that says, can I still launch in a shutdown? And they said yes, but you just need to change your wording. Was this meant for crypto ETFs? Probably not. They were probably talking about maybe IPOs or other ETFs. But the lawyers from all these companies read this and said, well, it's talking about securities. An ETF is a security. We can launch this in accordance to this rule. Are the SEC going to be very happy about it? Maybe, maybe not, but there's nothing they can do about it. So these are launching today and tomorrow. So no formal SEC press release was issued regarding these ETF approvals. That's because under Section 8A, no active SEC intervention is required. The legal default is that after 20 days, the registration is effective unless the SEC acts to stop it. There was no one there to stop it. I find it quite funny, in all honesty. They couldn't stop it if they wanted to because there was no one working on the SEC. So if you are still watching, please hit the like button. Please do subscribe. I'm going to come on to XRP in a second. I'm going to come on to the ETFs and tell you if I think that it's going to create an altcoin season and we're going to go to the moon because of these altcoin ETFs. I'll come on to all of that in a second. So this sets a potentially important precedent. It shows that crypto ETF issuers, when confident in their filings, can rely on procedural law to move forward, even if the absence of the regulatory engagement. While this approach may not be viable in all contexts, it's now being executed across multiple products and issuers using consistent language and timing.
Tony Bogarts donated €9.50 through a super chat. Enphase earnings, please.
Thank you very much, Tony Bergens. We'll add it to the calendar. I'll see what we can do for you, Tony. Thank you very much for the super chat. While this approach, this approach may open the door to similar spot ETF filings in the future, particularly for altcoins not yet covered by approval products. However, each case will still depend on proper disclosure, market structure, and compliance with all other applicable rules. So now let's go over to XRP. So Eric did post this saying, XRP peeps right now, don't worry, you'll get your turn. So there's a little bit of optimism from Eric saying, and remember, Eric's the one who is a Bloomberg analyst who just focuses on ETFs. He says XRP will be coming soon. So the actual facts are that we don't have too much information. So several issuers, including Canary funds, have filed S1 amendments for spot XRP ETFs. Canary's October 10th filing references the option to invoke Section 8A of the Securities Act, but does not yet remove the delaying amendment or include the operational 473B clause required to start the 20-day countdown. As of now, it does seem like no XRP ETFs have triggered automatic effectiveness via the same mechanics used for Solana, Litecoin, or HBAR. I might be wrong, but from the research I've conducted, it does not seem like there is any other issuer that's for XRP that has removed that wording. So there doesn't look like there's any 20-day countdown clock for any XRP ETFs. Separately, the SEC has extended the review deadlines for XRP ETF filings, including those from CoinShares and 21 Shares. While no new SEC rule changes adopted in September may accelerate future approvals, there is no confirmed effective date for any XRP spot ETFs based on available filings. Launch is not imminent, but should proceed quickly if any issuers amends its registration to include the necessary 8A language. So unfortunately, we don't have a countdown. We can't say what day it's going to be released. From the research I've conducted, there is no one saying that there is a countdown effective. There is no one that I can find any issuers that have changed their wordings like the other issuers. But what I expect to happen is probably all issuers are now going to change their wording. So we might start seeing that 20-day countdown being effective this week. And if the US shutdown does end in the next few weeks, then I've always said a week after the shutdown ends, we get an ETF. So in both cases, I imagine the wording will change this week, so we can start putting a 20-day countdown by the end of this week. So that will be putting us towards the end of November. And if the shutdown ends, let's say the second week of November, that will be the end of November as well. So my thoughts are this time next month, we will have an XRP ETF. So as of today, US exchanges are listing spot ETFs for 3 additional digital assets. The launches were enabled not by an SEC decision, but by strict adherence to existing securities laws, specifically automatic effective provisions under Rule 473B and Section 8A of the Securities Act. Key filings were made between October the 7th and 9th. Listings were confirmed on October the 27th. Trading begins 28th and 29th. Custody and pricing infrastructure is in place. The SEC, for its part, has neither blocked or commented on the process because it didn't need to. So that is how they managed to do it. You can see Solana is not really reacting. It's basically flat on the day. Litecoin is up 2.5%. HBAR is reacting the most, up 11.7%. My thoughts on ETFs in general, an ETF launching doesn't mean the market's going to pump straight away. You might get the launch pump, which you're seeing for 1 out of the 3, which is HBAR. You're seeing a 12% pump. On on others, you're not seeing that initial pump. Oh, wow, we've got KC giving away 5 bronze memberships. Look at this. This is amazing. Thank you so much, KC. Make sure you are hitting the like button and subscribing and see if you can claim those memberships. Do thank KC for those free memberships. How amazing is that? So 1 out of 3 have pumped. So I wouldn't be betting on every time an ETF launches, you get that ETF launch pump. The only time you're going to get that pump is if you're in a euphoric cycle where everything's going up every day. Let's say that XRP is at $4, the markets are pumping, Bitcoin's at 150,000, and then you get that sudden information that there's an XRP ETF launching. That's when the retail investors and the momentum will push XRP up maybe another 20, 30, 40%. In most cases, it wouldn't push up that much if we're just in a situation like this. We might get a 10% pump, just like we saw with HBAR. But that's not the point. The point is what it does for the long term. So when he saw that Bitcoin ETF launch, the market actually dumped. And then over the following months, when there was actually money flowing in, Bitcoin's price kept going up because most of that money was coming from these ETFs. So it just gives another way for hedge funds, pensions, retirement accounts, tax efficient accounts to start buying XRP. So it's not a one-day thing where, okay, ETF launch, now we're going to take profits. It's about having another way that money flows into XRP, and over the long term and over a bull market, and if we are in a bull market and we continue the bull market, it just allows more money to flow into an XRP ETF. That XRP ETF has to hold that XRP. So that's XRP taken off exchanges, taken off the float, and that takes away from the supply. And in that case, that's why XRP's price goes up. So don't get confused about waiting for headlines about an XRP ETF launching and expecting a 50% pump in the day. It's not about that. Unless you're in a really hype cycle and everyone's very excited and you get that news and that just pumps it up a bit more. Most realistically, it just slowly but surely adds more money and you get more and more inflows from people buying the XRP ETF. If we're in a bear market, it won't really have much effect. The price will probably go down, but when we enter another bull market, then you have that extra vehicle to invest in XRP, and that's why the bull market will be stronger next time round. If we still continue with this bull market, which we might do, coming up until the end of the year, the stock market's looking good. Let's see how the Mag 7 react on earnings and what Jerome Powell says in the FOMC meeting. But if the bull market continues and we have an XRP ETF, then we can really start targeting that $5 to $10 range for the bull market top for XRP, because there is that additional way to invest in XRP. So I hope that helps. There'll be 2 videos up here. There'll be the newsletter for you guys to check out over here. First in the description. Please do hit the like button, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the FOMC and the earnings this week. But until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.